You're listening to Heroic Reflections, honoring the stories behind the service, hosted by Liam Steele. On this episode, Captain Arianna C D'Isola, United States Army.
Hey.
Thanks for doing this with us today.
Yeah, no problem.
Did you enlist in the military?
Sort of. So I did ROTC in college. So I attended college at the University of Utah, and my first semester there, I signed up for the ROTC program. So basically, you go to college for 4 years, you get your degree, and then while you're in college, you take classes that like teach you about leadership and about the Army. So I didn't enlist like in a normal like enlist and go to basic training. I joined ROTC, went to some training camps over the summer, and then I commissioned as a second lieutenant into the Military Police Corps in May of 2016.
What was the ROTC program like when you were there?
So every year, like as you like progress, it gets a little bit more involved. But typically we would have physical training 3 days a week, from 6 to 7:30 in the morning. And then you attend your regular college classes. So I was a psychology major, so I attended like classes for my major. And then 2 days a week, I attended like a special class. It's called like military science. So each semester you take like a specific class to teach you about like Army leadership. And then on Thursdays from I think it was like 2 to 5, you'd have like a lab portion. And you do like a practical, like hands-on application. So it was like, PT a couple of days a week and then like some specialty classes. And then in the summers, when you were off school on break, you would go between your junior and senior year, you would go to Fort Knox, Kentucky, and you would go through like a testing period. So you kind of like get tested on everything you've learned so far. And then if you graduate, then you like continue on. You can also attend some special schools if you get selected, airborne school, air assault school. There's a couple like foreign exchange programs you can do to like you learn a language and like visit a foreign country, which is really cool too. But typically that's what it was like.
Well, that's pretty cool. What was it like? What training did you get after you actually got in the military?
So I had a couple different trainings. So the first school I attended is the Military Police Officer Basic Leader course when I was a second lieutenant. And that teaches you an introductory to being an officer in the Army and about leadership, about how to account for your property, how to develop the soldiers that you lead. So like financial leadership and like family support. And then it teaches you how to be a police officer at the same time. So I got like certified to be a federal law enforcement officer. So that was really cool. And then I've also attended a specialty training for hazardous incident response. So like if there was a nuclear disaster or a hurricane or something that required like assistance, kind of like Hurricane Katrina, or like a national disaster, I'm like specially trained to handle that. And then at my favorite school I've attended is airborne school, where you get to learn how to jump out of a plane. And that has been my favorite school. And then I've been to jump master school, where you teach people how to jump out of a plane and you get to be the one to lead people out of the plane. And you learn how to inspect like parachutists and their equipment to be able to safely jump out of planes. So those have been some of my favorite pieces of training I've gotten from the Army.
What was that?
You like all this? Or?
Oh, sorry.
Is there like a special reason why it's your favorite?
Yeah. So airborne school is really cool because one, you don't really get to jump out of a plane in your everyday life. So I loved the World War II generation. My grandmother grew up in Italy during World War II, so I was like always really interested in that. And I thought it was so cool how like that generation jumped out of a plane into like a foreign country to like help other people. And I have a really big sense of adventure and I love history. So I was like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. And to me, like, you learn how to jump out of a plane, but you learn something really cool about yourself every time you jump out of a plane because it's scary. It takes a lot of courage. Um, and I don't know, it like helps you overcome a lot of things in life. And then everything else in your life becomes really easy when you have to jump out of a plane. So for me, like, that was a really cool thing to do. In the unit that I'm in now, we are the only military police unit in the entire Army that can deploy via airborne insertion. So it's pretty cool.
Have you ever been deployed?
So I have not been deployed on a combat tour, but I've had 2 operational deployments, one to Germany in 2017, in response to the like Russian aggression in that time in the Baltic area. And then I went to Korea for like the Korean defense like rotation in 2021. 2021.
Okay. What kind of
What
work
was?
did you do there?
Oh, you can go.
Oh, in Korea or in Germany?
Both. Yeah.
So Germany was really cool. I was there for 10 months. I supported the 4th Infantry Division in the US Army. And then I also got to serve for a month with a German mechanized infantry battalion. And I got to serve with armies from like all over Europe. And basically we would train, we would like learn how to like work with each other. It's kind of like when you play sports, like if you're on a sports team, like your team has a certain way of doing things, and like another sports team like plays the same sport but kind of like runs practice a little bit different, or like so on and so forth. So those exercises are so we can like all learn how we each do operations. So that way if we have to work together in the future, we're like already know how each other operate. So we did training events all over Europe. I traveled to 34 countries, just learning how to work with other nations, armies, and like building relationships and doing some pretty cool training. Got to visit some neat countries too. And then in Korea, um, my job, I was in charge of like all of the military police, like law enforcement operations for half of Korea, like the northern half of the Republic of Korea. And then like the mission there is to like be ready in case anything happens between North and South Korea. So I learned a lot about Korean culture, and a lot about like law enforcement in foreign nations. So I got to work with like the Korean National Police and do a lot of work with the Korean police and learn from them and integrate our training with them too.
Okay.
I just have a question. What was airborne school like?
So airborne school is 3 weeks long. I went in the winter, so it wasn't super hot outside, but it's in Georgia, Fort Moore. It used to be called Fort Benning. Now it's Fort Moore. It's divided into 3 weeks. So you have ground week, tower week, and jump week. So it's like a progression. It's like you don't jump out of the plane like your first day. I've been so scared. So the first week, ground week, they teach you everything that you need to know. For when you jump out of the plane. So like everything that you practice inside the aircraft before you jump, how you exit the aircraft properly. You practice in like a mock airplane. So you practice exiting, you learn how to put your parachute on, you learn how to take your parachute off, you learn how to handle certain emergency situations. And then most importantly, you learn how to land, which involves a lot of like jumping off things and falling down. So you learn how to conduct a parachute landing fall, so you can land safely and not get injured. And then the second week, you practice those same things, but you practice from a 34-foot tower. So if you ever like go on YouTube, you can YouTube like 34-foot tower airborne school. And then you learn how to overcome your fear of heights. So like you practice all those same things, but like higher off the ground. It's like a little tower and you kind of go down a zip line. So you build on that. And then you learn how to conduct parachute landing falls from different heights. So you start with a 24-inch platform, and then you go on this, like, it's called the lateral drift apparatus. It's like a little zip line that goes side to side, and you like let go of it and learn how to fall and land. And then you start, you go on the swing landing trainer. So like you kind of swing back and forth, like it to simulate a parachute jump, and then you learn how to land. And then some classes, if you're lucky, you get to do the 200-foot towers at Fort Benning. So they put like this special training parachute on you. They hoist you up 200 feet and then it let goes. And then you like drift to the ground and practice your landing. And then the third week, you jump out of the plane. So you complete 5 jumps from an Air Force aircraft at 1,200 feet. So over Fort Benning and Fryer Drop Zone. So you learn like how to land, the basics, and you practice it from the tower. And then the third week, you jump out of the plane 5 times, which is a lot of times to jump in 1 week, but it's pretty fun. And then in the mornings, you do physical training every day. So like you run a lot at airborne school. Like you run everywhere. You run in the morning, and then in the school day when you go from like class to class, like you run with your helmet on. It's really hot and kind of it's a lot of work, but it's worth it to jump out of the plane. It's the best part.
How far was it?
The runs.
Yeah.
So in the morning you run about 5 miles. You run like kind of slow. You run, I'd say like they say in the schoolhouse it's between an 8-minute and 45-mile to like a 9-minute mile, but like I think you run closer to like 8:30. You can't wear a watch, so I don't really know. So that's like about 4 to 5 miles, and then in that you're in like running shoes and like shorts and a t-shirt, you're like your PT uniform. But then during the day you're wearing your uniform and boots, so it's like a little bit heavier. And those runs were anywhere from like quarter mile to like maybe a mile and a half, just shorter because like you're kind of in this like training area. But you put a lot of miles on your feet at airborne school. You run everywhere.
Do you have any like very memorable experiences from when you were in the military?
Yeah, my favorite experience. So right now, I'm the company commander of the 118th Military Police Company, airborne at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, formerly Fort Bragg. And one of my favorite days, I have like 2 really big favorite days. My first one actually was this week. It's Women's History Month in March, and I got to be one of the jump masters on an aircraft that had a female jump master team and all female jumpers. Um, and that was really special to jump with a lot of my female soldiers. It's just something that hasn't really been done before in our unit. So that was just really special to kind of be part of something bigger than myself. And then last year in May, one of the streets on Fort Liberty got renamed for a soldier who died in Afghanistan from my unit in 2010. And his name was Daniel Merriweather. He was a really awesome guy, really fun to be around, like life of the party kind of guy. And he died in an IED attack in 2010. And last year, Fort Liberty put out this contest, or I don't know if a contest is the right word, but you could nominate somebody to get this like the street. So they were renaming some streets. So, like someone who like did something heroic and a street could be named after them. And when the results came out, they picked a couple of generals who were in World War II and a couple like really high ranking people from Vietnam and Korea. And then they picked Staff Sergeant Daniel Merriweather from the 118th MP Company. And I think he was probably the lowest ranking person that made the cut. But his family came when we renamed the street, and his son, who's 10 years old, came and got to hang out with us for a day. And we put him in a parachute and let him like do that kind of stuff. We showed him around, and he got to hang out with us for a couple days, and to see his son here and like be able to do that for us was like so special. I'll remember that forever. It's pretty cool. It's pretty special.
Oh, were there any pranks that you or your friends have pulled?
Yes. Yeah, a lot. There's probably some I should talk about. Some I probably should talk about. Um, I think like the most harmless things is involving like duct tape. Like when you're a new lieutenant, sometimes they like pull pranks on you. They'll like try and kidnap you and duct tape you to something. One of my friends got duct taped to like a cot.
Okay.
And then like I don't know if like kids like your guys still do this, but like you fill up like a trash can full of water and you put it up against someone's door and like you knock on the door and then like you lean the trash can full of water against it, so when they open it like spills everywhere. We like do goofy stuff like that. Oh, and if you leave like your hat, like your patrol cap or something out laying around, people have been known to put it like in a thing of water and put it in the freezer because like you can't go anywhere without your hat on. So then you have to like break the ice. Or like their ID cards, like if you leave it in your computer, which is like bad, people like tape over it so your chip won't work anymore. And people are like, oh, my card won't work. And there'll be like a little piece of tape over it. Yeah, we do stuff like goofy stuff, like kids. Yeah.
What is everyday life like in the military for you?
So for me, it's pretty cool. So I wake up pretty early. I also do triathlon. I do Ironman, so I wake up like really early, like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
I'll go for a bike ride for about an hour, hour and a half. Then I'll go to work. We do physical training every day from 6:30 to 8. Every day, Monday through Friday, not the weekends. Basic training, you do it on the weekends. Real life, you don't.
Yeah.
So we go to work. PT starts at 6:30. We work out till 8. From 8 to 9:30, you have time to like get breakfast and shower, change and get ready for the day. And then right now, we're doing law enforcement mission. So like my unit, we do like policing. So it's kind of like we go to the police station, get the brief, like the updated cases from the night before. And then we get ready to do like the policing mission. So our soldiers will go out on the road, work traffic accidents, different cases, and do that kind of stuff. When we're in a training cycle, when we're not doing law enforcement, we're training all the time. So we plan our training 8 weeks out. We get the instructor certified, and then we do any type of training. So for military police, we go to a lot of weapons ranges, we shoot a lot of weapons, shoot houses. We do police training, so training our police skills. We do training for like combat operations, so detention operations, security operations, things like that. So for those, sometimes we go out train for the day and come back at night, and then sometimes we might train for like an extended period of time. We call it like going to the field, and you might stay out for like 2-3 days in training because you have to train during the day and at night. But most days, like, you go in, you either do law enforcement or you're in a training cycle. You get about like an hour to have lunch, like 11 to 12 or so. And then you either train or do some work until like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. You go home. And then like after work, you can like go to the gym, hang out, like play intramural sports, kind of like do whatever.
Is there anything you wish you knew before you joined?
Yeah. So I wish I knew how much, like, I played sports in high school. I played a lot of sports. I was on a sports team, but like I know I was pretty good. I'm like, I was pretty cocky. And I wish I knew like how important it was to like be on a team. Like I knew that, and I thought I knew that, but like the military is a team sport. So like you rely on the people to your left and right. Like they are all you have. You have to trust them. You have to work as a team. You can go fast alone, but you can go far together. And I wish I had known and accepted like the team mentality, like when I was, like 19, 20 years old. So I think like that was a big lesson. I wish I had known that. Everything else is challenging and hard, but like you just kind of roll with it. But yeah, I wish I knew how important teamwork was earlier on in my life.
Okay. What's your advice for someone thinking about joining the military?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
Do you have any advice for someone thinking about joining the military?
Yeah, do it. So the military can be like unknown or kind of scary for someone who's never been in it. It's different than normal civilian life. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. You might have to like live away from your hometown. You might have to live in a different country. You might have to go to a foreign country on and do all these things and be with people that like you don't know, but like you are the biggest barrier for yourself. Like you can accomplish so much more than you think you're capable of. Like I never thought I was could have the courage to jump out of a plane, and I've done it so many times, right? So like you are the only one holding you back. Like just do it. You're going to learn, you're going to have a lot of successes. You're probably going to have some failures, but that can happen whether you're in the military or whether you're an accountant, right? So like just do it. Put your heart into it, work really hard, knowing you're going to take it on the chin sometimes, but I would say do it cuz like you're the only one holding you back.
Right. What have you been able to apply to your life that you've learned in the military?
Oh man, this is a big list. So for one, like leadership. The leadership skills that I've learned from being an officer in the Army have been incorporated into my life. In the Army, officers lead from the front, right? So like you can't expect anyone to do something that you won't. So in like daily life, I try and lead from the front in my family, in my community. Like it's just taught me that it's important to be present and be visible um, in whatever it is you're doing. Because like if you're not doing it, then like it's really hard to ask somebody to do something that like you're not doing and being an example for. Because people look up to you. So I think like that is a really big thing. And then discipline, which I think is probably a common answer for a lot of people. But the discipline in the Army. So like I'm sure you've seen it, or at least a stereotype that like there's discipline in the Army, and there has to be because of the nature of what we do.
Yeah.
But like in the Army, everything's a certain way. It has to be a certain way. Like there's a certain way to conduct training. There's a certain way to conduct PT in the morning, and so you practice and you rehearse and you like pay attention to the details. And I have taken that from the Army into my life. So like how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So like you just find yourself paying attention to the details and taking that same level of discipline you've learned in the Army into your life. And then like for me too, like courage. Like I was a real scaredy cat. I didn't go on roller coasters. I didn't like any of that kind of stuff. I'd be like really hesitant to try new things. I'm like, I don't know, but 34 countries later and about 20 jumps out of a plane, like you learn to embrace change and try new things and
Mhm.
be like, look, the worst that happens is I don't like something and that's okay. But I've tried so many things in my life because of like the courage I learned from the Army. Um, that's probably the biggest one.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have questions?
Uh, what'd you say your position was?
So I'm a company commander. Basically, I'm in charge of 150 people. Um, and everything that like so the military is organized into like different levels. So there's like battalions, which are like 5 to 800 people, right? So like think about it like a corporation. You have like the overarching, and then it gets like smaller and smaller and smaller. So like you have your battalions. So there's like a lieutenant colonel in charge of a battalion. Um, and then within a battalion, there's like 4 to 5, sometimes even 6 companies that you're like split up into. And each company is between like 150, 200 people. And they have like a captain who's in charge of it. And then each company is split into like different platoons. So you have like a platoon leader that's like 30 to 40 people apiece. So every day I am responsible for the accomplishment of whatever mission my battalion commander has asked my company to do. Um, you have a lot of people who all work to support that mission, but at the end of the day, I am the one responsible for everything my company does and fails to do. I am responsible for the safety, morale, and welfare of all 150 or so of my soldiers, that and their families, everything that we do. I am responsible for leading them into combat if we are called to go safely. I am in charge of assuming risk and making like those really hard, big decisions. Um, so it's kind of like a big job, but it's really rewarding and a lot of fun. Yeah, it's my current job.
Have you had any previous jobs in the military?
Yep. So before I was a company commander, so like in the officers, we kind of like rotate. You like go in different positions, like one as you get promoted, and as like you become like higher in rank, you have like more responsibility. So my first job in the military, I was a platoon leader. So I was in charge of like 30, 40 soldiers, especially like when I went to Germany. Um, so like the platoon leader is responsible for everything the platoon does in executing the mission of the platoon. Um, After I was a platoon leader, I was a company executive officer. Um, so I was in charge of all of the maintenance and supply operations for the company. Because like you have trucks, you have equipment, all that has to get maintained. Supply, so like ammunition and food and training supplies and all that type of stuff. And so the executive officer of the company is like the assistant to the commander. So you're kind of like one step like you're like the assistant captain of the team, basically. So I was a company executive officer. And then after I was a company executive officer, I was a battalion logistics officer. So like I supervised all of the company executive officers in the battalion. So like overall travel, movement, like when we have to ship our equipment overseas, I oversaw that. Then after that, I went to like a training school for about a year. And then I went to Korea, where I was the provost marshal, which is like the police officer in charge of all law enforcement for areas 1 and 2 in Korea, which is like the northern half of Korea, everything from Seoul to the DMZ. And then I came to Fort Liberty, North Carolina, where I was the battalion operations officer. So you plan all the overarching like missions and training for the whole battalion. I did that for about a year and a half. And then I was company commander.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
For people who may read about my project, is there anything you'd like them to know about you or your time in the military?
I think like the most important thing is like people in the military, we're just like everyone else. Like I have a house, I have cats, like I have a husband, I drive a truck, like I love the Alabama Crimson Tide, like I love college football. Like I'm just like everyone else. Like we're people. And like we have a really cool job, but like anyone can do it. Like we're people and we're people just like everyone else and we're really cool. So it's people always get this thing, it's like people like yelling and screaming and like there is some of that, but like at the end of the day, like I like to watch college football and chill out at home and ride my bike and like
Mhm.
I'm 4'11", I weigh 100 pounds, like we're all pretty cool. So just we're just like you. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, I don't think so. I'm super proud of what you guys are doing. Like I think this is awesome. It's so cool to highlight veterans in this way and like capture some of these stories so like they kind of live on in the history. So I'm like super stoked for you guys. I'm super proud of you guys. I know it's a lot of like personal time invested, and I think like what you guys are doing isn't like far off from what I do. Like you guys are definitely leaders in your community, and like that's so cool. Like hold on to that for as long as you can, and like just keep challenging yourself, whether it's in this or like I know like you play lacrosse or whatever it is you do in your life, be the best at it, master your craft, and like it'll be pretty cool.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
volunteering your time with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening to this edition of Heroic Reflections, honoring the stories behind the service, hosted by Liam Steele.
This podcast is part of the NORCAS Podcast Network. Check out more podcasts at podomatic.com/NORCAM.